Here, ancient civilizations have finished their way and left dozens of mysteries behind. Here is a marvelous nature, unusual flora and fauna, and most importantly, landscapes that make you want to stand still with delight. A huge number of birds live here. There is so much to see in this country, from the valleys of the Amazon River to the snow-capped peaks of Ant, that one trip will not be enough to see everything. You're on the Yambo-Yang Canal, and I'm discovering Peru. I've been told it's not safe to travel here. There's so much police here, it's best not to go into the local slums. And you can easily walk into a courtyard where people actually live. But I didn't listen, and that's that. Dizzy, downturned, stiff. So is it dangerous for a tourist here? I'll check it out and show you the city that tops the top colorful in the world. Also, the neighborhood is connected from the straw on the river. How is that even possible? How soft it is here. But my main goal is to see one of the 7 wonders of the world, Machu Picchu. And to get there, I was ready to do anything. But I was in for a big surprise. The weather just got really bad. Yes, in this episode, I will be at altitude, that is, in the mountains. My goal is Machu Picchu, but the only way to get to the city at the top is by transferring to Peru's capital, Lima, on whose shores the Pacific Ocean waves for 2,500 kilometers. Here 5 centuries ago, Spanish conquerors brutally slaughtered the indigenous people, wiping their homes off the face of the earth. That's why seasoned tourists say there's nothing to see here. Let's check it out. Lima is a very green city because there is only jungle around. Therefore, do not be surprised if instead of the usual chirping of sparrows, you hear the beaks of parrots.
Such big parrots, and you can meet them easily on the streets. Over there sitting on a palm tree so loud, do you hear?
Now just check out these evergreen lawns and ponds where predatory freshwater turtles and fish quietly coexist.
Wow, that's some fish. Oh, this is lovely.
Low houses and wrought iron balconies littered with fresh flowers, and all that Spanish Baroque meets modern glass. That's how 400-year-old houses neighbor with modern buildings. We go to the central square. There are a lot of historical buildings around. It is understandable this is where the history of this city begins. Spaniards built the first university, the doors of which opened to local students 500 years ago, and the first Catholic church or cathedral. The construction of this majestic cathedral began almost 500 years ago. This main cathedral was decided to be massive and grand. But considering the city gets a big shake at least once a year, this is how nature rewrites history. The Kram had to be constantly rebuilt, and since this happened in different eras, different styles were added, from Baroque and Rococo to Neoclassicism. But bronze monuments do not need to be restored after earthquakes. This is one of the oldest monuments, a bronze fountain. It was installed in 1,650 years. There used to be gallows in this place. Now the fountain, which survived all the earthquakes. By the way, Face this beauty. Russian tourists, for example, can without a visa. Such rules. However, there are less pleasant ones. Peru has very strict rules about wearing a mask, and it is necessary to wear not even one, but two. Can you imagine? And there are dozens of police officers patrolling the city around the clock. So many police, there are 20 men for this one small square. That's because crime is so high here, and the authorities blame it on the poor and the colorful houses on the hills, which built the capital in the most colored cities in the world, so-called a hotbed of crime. Colorful roofs and walls, by the way, made local not from the bright life, but to somehow brighten up the existence. Tourists are warned at once. It is better not to go there. They will leave you with a nose. But in the center is absolutely safe, and here you can easily enter a courtyard where people actually live, and it's not a tourist spot. And that's how you hide behind a shiny door, hiding poverty and ruin. Jobs are hard to come by, and if you are lucky, you can count on it in Russian money, except for 20,000 rubles a month. That's why people here grasp at any kind of labor. This is how special people in yellow vests stand on the street and change dollars. Everything is legal, the rate is not bad. Come and change. Why look for banks and exchangers? Let's move on to another capital, the capital of the Inca Empire. Yes, the central city of the Incas was not Lima, but Cusco. That's why all roads to Machu Picchu only go from here. Cusco is organized in a European way, narrow streets, Gothic churches, and here it is especially noticeable how the Spaniards brutalized and settled. They chose ruined Indian buildings as bases for their houses. The Spaniards first destroyed the city, and then on its ruins began to build their own. And here you can see the Inca masonry very well, and the Spaniards' houses on top. But it's beautiful wherever you look. These low houses with carved balconies, the square with a fountain are gorgeous. And of course, the gilded statue of the 9th Inca ruler. Cusco is an amazing city. I loved it to bits. But by evening, I felt like I was over 3,000 meters above sea level, where there's less oxygen in the air because of the low pressure. I'm feeling dizzy, a little sore. It's like a severe energy loss. And I just want to lie down, close my eyes so that this cycle around you stops a little bit. Tomorrow should be fine.
I'm holding up my fingers!
It's early morning and I'm on the road again. This is probably the most unusual bus I've ever seen. The fortresses of Sacsayhuaman are not far from Cusco. And if you look at a map, the city resembles a puma. And the head of this sacred animal was exactly the Indian citadel. Of course, now it's just ruins. But just imagine there was a huge tower in the middle. Yeah, the sheer scale of it makes you dizzy. These are, of course, gigantic blocks. Supposedly, this stone was quarried 3 kilometers from here, and these huge rocks weigh 60 tons. And this is like a passenger carriage on a train. How did people at that time without special equipment transport all this? I don't understand. It is the same unsolved mystery as in Egypt, because there are sarcophagi that weigh 100 tons. How they were moved is also unknown. By the way, you can watch the video, I told you about it. And what is also surprising is how smooth the stones are. After all, except for gold and silver, which by nature are very soft, the Indians had no metals. I mean, look at the masonry. It's uneven. The way they honed that granite. If you look at it, there's the same gaps between the stones. Honestly.
It's a mystery to me, but it's not just me.
Some people still believe that the Indians were helped by aliens. Sacsayhuaman was built by who knows who. A lot of people think it predates the Inca era. And then the Incas came to this land and began to build their temples. So there are still mysteries to be solved and unraveled. There's only one thing you can't argue with. It is from here that the magical view of Cusco opens up. Now it is a very touristy city. Its population is 600,000 people. Viva Peru! From which, by the way, I get to the city in the clouds, Machu Picchu. Only first I take a bus to the small village of Ollantaytambo. To get on this train, you have to wear one mask, a second mask, and a third mask. How's that, Elon Musk? And then take the train to the city of Aguas Calientes. Yes, this is where all the famous buildings are literally scattered across the country, so be prepared for a long commute. But this picturesque road lies through villages and gorges, ancient buildings, and of course, high mountains. Aguas Calientes is such a staging point, or you could say gateway, for those who are going to drive to Machu Picchu early in the morning. We're standing 6:30 for that, and now there's time to walk around. But the town is so small, there's not a lot of room for walking around. You can walk around it in about 10 minutes, and you'd find nothing but hotels and restaurants, and the markets, of course.
Obviously.
Remember, in Peru's tourist markets, you have to bargain. So...
Here.
I'm gonna get my new clothes on the road, and here I think I almost see the wonder of the world. But, well, the line at Machu Picchu is long. And because of the high humidity, there's a fog covering everything. Behind me, the most amazing thing of all opens up.
Machu Picchu. You can see how beautiful it is.
It would be if it weren't for the fog. I better go torture the lamp. And while I was looking for the way to the llamas, the labyrinth is built so that you can't get near the llamas. A miracle happened.
I was very upset at first when we got here because the fog had done its job. You couldn't see anything. But now it's cleared up. There's no sun, but still Machu Picchu is there in all its glory.
And here it is, the main attraction in Peru that everyone has heard of. But it was discovered only some 100 years ago by the American historian Hiram Binger, who devoted his life to the search for lost cities. And many people do not even realize that they know him well from the image of the main adventurer Indiana Jones, whose prototype became a scientist. American scientist Heimer Binger traveled through the Andes in search of a completely different Inca city. He met a boy who was on his way to Machu Picchu, and he told the scientist about this city.
I want to get an important archaeological find, and you're scaring me with stories.
For Binger, the boy's stories were true, except that the real historian, unlike the on-screen historian, wasn't so lucky. He didn't find any Indian riches here, but he did find something more expensive. 200 of the most ancient structures, which tourists coming here have already gold-plated and included in the list of wonders of the world. 100 million people voted to put it on the list, but no one still knows the exact name of the city. Archaeologists haven't found a single inscription, but it didn't take long to figure out what to call it. They named it after a neighboring mountain, and in translation from Indian Machu Picchu means Old Peak. By the way, it is not known for what purpose this city was built. According to one version, children of noble inhabitants of Cusco were sent here for education. Boys were taught astronomy and women, textile business. Imagine Machu Picchu on a peak 2.5 kilometers above sea level. How did ancient people build all this without special equipment? Stones for the construction of buildings in Machu Picchu were brought from remote quarries. But it is known for sure that the Spanish troops did not reach here. According to one theory, when the Spaniards came, they could not find this city because the Incas simply dismantled the road to it. But then why did the Incas leave this flourishing city? And where did the mountains of gold go? Did the Incas hide them? To go searching. Answers. Peru today ranks first in Latin America in the mining of this precious metal. The Incas are said to have had so many reserves that they were the envy of even European kings, and that the treasure is now at the bottom of the deepest Lake Titicaca. The lake is located in South America, high in the mountains on the border of Peru and Bolivia. The way to it is through the city of Puno. These lands have always been rich in minerals, gold and silver. That's why the Spanish fought so fiercely for dominion over them. And here live the very real Aymara and Quechua Indians. And the women wear traditional but very fluffy skirts and men's hats, which they inherited from the Spanish conquerors. I am not at all out of the ordinary in my poncho, because many Peruvians wear national outfits in the latter part of their lives. There are also a lot of European-style houses here. In the center of the city of Puno is a standard South American colonial square with a main cathedral that dates back to the 17th century. And there is a huge number of birds and wildlife around. You can also find little guinea pigs here. Well, or you can get big guinea pigs. Guinea pigs, come here. If I had an apple or something, he'd probably be more interested in me. And a better view of Lake Titicaca, which, as it happens, is on one of the highest observation decks. And after all, nobody cancelled mountain sickness. There are very few leaves here because to get here you have to overcome more than 700 steps. Well, and in principle, it is not so easy to do it. Yes, and the figure itself in fact looks more like a turkey than a condor. And this is the view over the city of Puno.
Lake Titicaca is really stunning.
And where? There, in the middle of the lake, Bolivia begins. The lake is so huge that it's impossible to see it completely even from this altitude. It is the largest high mountain lake that already has shipping to us. And by the way, the depth at Titicaca is also decent. And this is almost 300 meters. For the locals, Titicaca is a sacred body of water. There was a great ancient city here, where the Incas sort of hid gold from the Spanish. But when the earth began to rise, it took a piece of the ocean with it, and buried the wealth at the bottom. Many people tried to find it. Even Jacques-Yves Cousteau came down here, but found only small artifacts. And just recently, the legend became a reality. The city was discovered, however, in Bolivia, and raised to the surface 2,000 artifacts, including silver and gold. And here, where the peaks cling to the clouds, I found something too. An exacerbation of my mountain sickness. It's a pain in the ass to do all this with such shortness of breath. How do people live here for what's to come? On the lake, next to a small piece of land, the locals have woven their own personal islands, and they made them out of grass. We've come to an island made of reeds. Can you imagine? It's made entirely of reeds. And people live here. You don't have to take out a mortgage. You just have to remember to tie the knitted island to the land. Otherwise, you know.
Soft!
That's embarrassed.
You walk around and feel it swaying. A straw island lives for 30 years and then it starts to rot. And you're out of a house. It's a good thing we have building materials on hand. Grab it and rip it up. And this straw island even has a heart. Here, each island has its own symbol, which they also make out of reeds. Let's say this island has a bird. The neighboring one has a leopard. But how do they live here when it's plus 20 during the day and minus 5 at night?
That's how people live. They sleep on beds like this. But what I want to point out is that they have solar panels and they have light.
How did they even get here? And why are the islands made of grass? They started building these islands in the early 13th century. The Incas came to the lake to incorporate the tribes that lived here into their empire. But instead of becoming part of a large state, the inhabitants began to master floating houses. By the way, some reed islands can accommodate up to 10 families. And all the women still wear the national dress. So beautiful.
Anyway, I took this jacket off. And it's not new.
I don't know whether to take it or not. And I know that at home, the vest is in the closet. But it's so bright. Just do not write in the comments that not everything does not match. I know that. But I'm gonna help the locals. It's 40 sols. That's $10. After all, the only income the locals have is from tourists.
What kind of tourists?
That's what this city of Puno is like. Warm and real, where you can touch a cloud. In case you didn't realize, I'm talking about this fluffy alpaca.
Tomorrow we're going back to Lima, and to be honest, I'm really excited about it. Not because it's bad here.
It's because, guys, mountain sickness is tough.
This is the kind of stuff I'm gonna miss. Yeah, baby.
And this is not the end of the journey, because I've got a lot more to surprise you with. like the rocky islands of Ballestas. And I'll tell you, they're not just rocks. It's a nature reserve. It's off limits to tourists, even by boat. Only ornithologists are allowed, for scientific purposes. That's why neither humans nor predators prevent the huge herds from comfortably settling on.
Fuck no. Frigates, gulls, albatrosses, cormorants, and then there are penguins. One last thing.
Rocks, the cutest ones, Black Mountain.
It's not black. It's all bird. It's just some kind of cosmos. I can't tell you how many birds there are. It's crazy. I've never seen so many in my life.
Dolphins to see your boat off, and seals to bask in the sun and pose for the camera. But only half an hour on the boat and the rocky shores of Ballestas turn into sandy beaches, where, for example, you can simply feed pelicans with fish. This is the Paracas Peninsula, where hundreds of kilometers of one continuous desert, the coast of which meets the ocean to show its strength and power. Sand Rain. That's the name of the peninsula where I am now, the island of Paracas, and the winds here, let me tell you, are very powerful, 25 to 60 meters per second, and such air currents can lift air into tons of sand. And at the same time, in sunny weather, this peninsula strikes with its tranquility and beauty. That is why locals and tourists from all over the world come here to see, for example, a giant drawing in the form of a candelabra, which, despite the sea storms, decorates the mountain for 1,000 years, or take a dip in the ocean with the pink flamingos. This is probably the most picturesque desert I've seen in my life, and my element is the ocean. God, it's beautiful. Look at it. Peru is definitely worth a visit to see with your own eyes the sunsets in the desert, the mountains that due to global warming have dissolved the snow and exposed all the colors of the mineral in the composition, and the Oconius history, and to understand what hides behind the wide smiles of Latin Americans who have lost in their land and homes, but not their hopes. You know what surprised me? Peru is an incredibly diverse country. On the one hand, every bit of this land is filled with the wisdom of ancient civilizations. And on the other hand, it is home to the richest fauna and incredibly beautiful nature. It is no wonder that millions of people strive to come here. After all, to see with your own eyes a lost city, or to stand over the spur in Paracas, is an unforgettable experience. You've been to the Yambo-Yang Canal. It was an amazing and fulfilling trip across America. But I missed home. But to this continent I will come back again. Subscribe to the channel, comments, likes. There are thousands more journeys ahead of us. See you soon.
Thank you.